When we say the word company, what are we really talking about? It's not just one single thing. Think of it more like a set of architectural blueprints. Under India's Companies Act of 2013, there are a bunch of different designs you can choose from, and each one is built for a specific purpose, a certain scale, and a different level of risk. So let's figure out how to read these blueprints together. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to break this down into 5 key areas. We'll kick things off with liability, which is kind of like your financial firewall. Then we'll look at how the number of members can completely define a company. Third, we'll get into the power dynamics and map out corporate relationships. After that, a quick look at some other important types, and then we'll wrap it all up by talking about why picking the right structure is so important. All right, let's start with the biggest, most fundamental question any business owner has. If things go south, is my own money on the line? This is all about liability, and it's the first major way we classify companies. Now, this right here describes the most popular business structure by a long shot. In a company limited by shares, you've got a solid wall between the company's debts and your personal bank account. Your personal risk is capped at whatever amount you still owe on the shares you own. So if you've paid for your shares in full, that's it. You owe nothing more no matter what debts the company gets into. It's the go-to for a reason. It gives you protection without being super complicated. This one's a little different. You'll often see it with clubs, charities, and other nonprofits. See, here, members don't really buy shares. Instead, they give a promise, a guarantee, to chip in a specific amount of money, but only if the company has to be liquidated. The key thing to remember is this money isn't for day-to-day business. It's just a safety net for when things are winding up. So, what's the real difference between these two? Well, it all comes down to when you might have to open your wallet. With shares, the company can ask you for any unpaid amount at any time, to fund its operations. But with a guarantee, that call for cash only comes if the company is shutting its doors for good. It's a huge difference in the timing and the whole purpose of that financial promise. And finally, we have the high-stakes version, the unlimited company. And just like the name says, there is no firewall, zero. If the company can't pay its bills, the members are personally on the hook for everything. Their homes, their savings, it is all on the table for the company's creditors. This structure is pretty rare, and for a very obvious reason. The personal risk is just massive. Okay, next up, let's look at companies based on a really simple question. How many people own it? Because the answer completely changes the company's DNA, taking it from a solo act to a massive public enterprise. The 2013 Act gave us this absolutely brilliant idea to really encourage entrepreneurship. An OPC lets a single founder, like a consultant or a creative freelancer, get all the main benefits of a company, like limited liability, but without the headache of finding partners or dealing with a ton of paperwork. It's kind of like being a solo artist with the full backing of a major record label. A private company is built to be closely held. Its internal rules do 2 really important things. First, they make it harder to sell shares to just anyone. And second, this is crucial, they put a cap on the total number of members. This structure also isn't allowed to ask the general public for money, which keeps the ownership all within a smaller select group. And here it is, the magic number, 200. That is the absolute legal ceiling for members in a private company. Now, the law is pretty smart about this. It doesn't count current or even former employees who got shares as part of their job. And that allows for things like employee stock options without accidentally breaking that 200-member rule. So a public company is basically everything a private company is not. There's no limit on how many members it can have. Its shares are meant to be bought and sold freely, say on a stock exchange, and it can raise a lot of money by asking the general public to invest. This is the blueprint for those really big companies that need access to a ton of capital. Companies don't exist in a vacuum. They often own pieces of each other or influence each other's decisions. So our next way of classifying them is by looking at these power dynamics, mapping out the relationships between different companies. Think of this one like a parent-child relationship. The holding company is the parent. It has control over the subsidiary, the child, in one of 2 main ways. Either it can appoint or fire most of the board of directors, or it controls more than half of the total voting power. Either way, it gets the final say on all the big decisions at the subsidiary. And this control can actually cascade down through multiple layers. So let's say Company A controls Company B, and then Company B controls Company C. Well, that means Company A indirectly controls Company C too. This chain can go on and on. In a scenario like this, Company A is sitting right at the top of the pyramid, making it the ultimate holding company for everyone else down the line. So what happens when you have influence but not, outright control? That's where the associate company comes into play. This happens when one company holds at least 20% of the voting power in another. It's not enough to be a subsidiary, remember, that's over 50%, but it's definitely enough to have what the law calls significant influence over business decisions. It's like having a seat at the main table, but you're not the one sitting at the head of it. All right, let's do a quick fire round of some other important, more specialized company types you might run into. These are structures that are really built for very specific jobs. A government company is defined by one really simple rule: majority ownership. If the central government, or one or more state governments, or some combination of them, holds at least 51% of the company's paid-up share capital, well then, it's a government company. Simple as that. Section 8 companies are basically businesses with a soul. They're set up to promote things like art, science, education, or social welfare. Any profit they make has to be plowed right back into achieving that mission. They are legally forbidden from paying out dividends to their members. It's all about the cause. Have you ever wanted to just press pause on a company? Well, that's pretty much a dormant company. It's a registered company that's essentially in hibernation. Maybe it was created to hold an asset, like a trademark or a piece of land, or for a project that's planned for the future, but right now, it isn't doing any real business.
And the law is super specific about what hibernation actually means. A significant accounting transaction is defined very, very narrowly. It excludes all the basic stuff you need to do to just exist. So you can pay government fees, maintain your office, and even issue shares to meet legal rules and still be considered dormant. Only real business deals can wake the company up.
So we've looked at all these different blueprints. Why does it matter so much? Well, because the structure you choose pretty much defines your company's potential, its risks, and its entire future.
Let's just quickly recap. Choosing a company structure really boils down to asking yourself 4 main questions. 1. How much personal risk are you willing to take on? 2. How many owners are going to be involved? 3. How will it connect with other companies? And 4, what is its ultimate purpose? The answers to these questions will point you straight to the perfect blueprint for your venture.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. Every structure we've talked about, from the tiny one-person company all the way to the sprawling public giant, is a tool designed for a specific job. So as you think about the business world, ask yourself this: which of these blueprints is actually capable of building the biggest dreams?